I'm in bed, and I just thought of another Christmas tradition in my family. It started with, I believe, my grandmother Martin, and that is to make Moravian gingerbread reindeer cookies and to tie a red ribbon around their necks. Back in my family history, there were some Moravians. It's a type of religion. I think it's Christian. But anyway, the Moravian gingerbread recipe is written down in, I believe, my great-grandmother's handwriting. And we always make them, and they have to be in the shape of a reindeer and a red ribbon tied around their neck. Now, my grandma Martin used to give them out. She used to keep a plate of them by the door, and they were given out to, like, the mailman and the milkman and people who would come to the door. But we still make them every year. And we usually, almost always tie the red ribbons around their necks, but it can be kind of a pain. Especially back in the day when we had this one reindeer cutter where the reindeers always came out very thin and spindly. And very often their heads would snap off when we tied the red ribbon around their necks. So it could get a little gruesome. But anyway, another thing I wanted to mention was, in Dickens' A Christmas Carol, I've always wondered about this. At the end, when Scrooge, after he is visited by the three ghosts, and he goes through all of that, and he becomes redeemed at the end, turns a new leaf and becomes a good person. What do you think happens to Marley? Jacob Marley, his former partner in business, the first ghost that visits Scrooge before the three ghosts of past, present, and future come. Jacob Marley visits Scrooge, and he is encumbered with chains, and he was as much a miser, if not more, than Scrooge was, and his purpose is to warn Scrooge of his ways, and sort of announce to him that the three ghosts would be visiting him, and that he'd better change his ways, or he'd end up like he was, like Marley was. I've always thought that once at the end of the story, when Scrooge becomes redeemed and is a new man and is nice and happy, I always think that's also Marley's salvation, because Marley succeeded in his task of helping to redeem Scrooge. I like to think that set Marley free of his chains and his punishment, because his punishment was to wander the earth, for being as much of a miser as Scrooge was, to wander the earth encumbered in chains and never be able to help anyone, to see everybody who needs help and not be able to help them, because he failed to do that in life. I think because he succeeded at the end in helping Scrooge, that was his redemption as well, and he was set free of his bondage. What do you think? Dickens didn't mention that in the story. I kind of wish that he had, but I think it makes sense, and that's what I want to believe. I want to believe that the spirit of Marley was redeemed at the end as well and set free.